guys, Joebizz34 back again. This is my newest creation, my second version, well, not my second Jason 8 ever released, but my newest version to the original Jason 8 I had showed way back when I started on the Sideshow forums. And this figure, it means a lot to me. It's very nostalgic because it is the first full custom figure I had done and shown on the forums back in 2010. And man, was I like a proud little kid of that thing, and I showed it everywhere, probably to the point where it annoyed people. But, you know, I was new, and I was new to the business and the forum, so, you know, I had to learn my way around and how to handle myself. But, you know, that figure always was a special place, and I had made a couple other versions that I had sold here and there because of making that first Jason 8. And then finally, even though I was reluctant, I did end up selling that original Jason 8 I made. And I had updated that one about 2 or 3 times, and I showed it in the forums. And eventually, he looked the best that he could possibly look, and for that version. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes, but it was a learning experience along the way. And you know, he came out pretty good. And somebody down the road actually wanted him and kept contacting me, and I finally gave in and sold it to him. And then it was hard because there was a lot of nostalgia there for me personally. I mean, it even had my own head sculpt that I had sculpted for it, and although again it wasn't the best. You know, it came from me. So it was hard to give it up, but at the same time, it was cool to know that it was going in the hands of somebody that, you know, liked it and appreciated it and, you know, wanted it for himself. So I said, okay, you know, it was time to move on. And then I contemplated, and for the longest time, I was coming up with things or ideas how I wanted to make a new version. I even made a new Jason 8 head sculpt myself again that came out better than the original, and I was going to use it, and I showed glimpses of it, like on YouTube and in my thread. But I had this sculpt. This is the only big difference with this figure. I did the full figure, but I didn't do the head sculpt. I did touch it up and weather it and repaint it a bit just to match the rest of the figure that I put together here. And this is Betomatali's original Jason 8 head sculpt that he had done a while back, and I got it off of the Sideshow forums directly from him. It is an original, not a recast. And I think I bought this back in like 2011 or somewhere around there, probably about almost a year later after I'd done the original Jason 8, and I never utilized it. I had it and I contemplated. I wanted to use my own, and I went back and forth. I almost sold it a couple times, and then finally I was like, you know what? You know, I need to put this beautiful head sculpt to use, and my goal was let me see if I can make a Jason 8 full figure that. And I hope you guys agree. So far, I've been getting good response on the forums so far showing this figure, but I wanted to do the head sculpt justice, and I wanted to give it a full figure effect that would honor the head sculpt and make it look cohesive and make it look like, you know, that I wanted to make the best Jason 8 full figure I could with this head sculpt to make that, you know, to make the head sculpt shine. Here's the mask off, and you can see it's a beautiful head sculpt done by Betomatali. It has a neck and everything that goes underneath. And it did come painted. He strapped it and painted the mask originally. I just went over it and touched it up. And I reworked it a bit, weathered it a little more, you know, repainted the skin tone just a little bit, just so that I can make it match, you know, the skin tone and make it look, you know, like it belongs to the rest of the figure. And one thing, show you a little bit on this side. It's a beautiful sculpt. I mean, all the way around. I mean, he did a bang up job for it. I mean, I've never seen a better Jason 8 sculpt, to be honest with you. So I wanted to just do it justice, you know, and I wanted it to be on a body that looks like it was made to go with this head sculpt, and I hope I succeeded. So we'll start, you know, with the shoes. There you can see I added some dirt and weathering to the shoes, and a little green effect. I wanted that toxic-looking chemical, you know, touch on him in spots, that bright green look. A lot of people did refer to this Jason as the Toxic Avenger Jason, and there was a lot of chemicals and toxic waste that he had gone through, you know, in the tunnels of New York and all that, which, by the way, I'm from New York, and none of that stuff is actually hanging out there in the sewers or in barrels in alleyways and stuff, but, you know, whatever, it was a movie. So there you go. So anyway, so this is to break down the figure really quick. The body is a Hot Toys body. It's on a TTM20, which is basically the same body that they use for like the Arnie's, you know, Terminator. I wanted him tall. I wanted him big. This is Kane Hodder. Okay, I'll put the mask back on him. So you give him that complete look. There you go. Beautiful. The shirt is the same green shirt that I bought off of eBay that I used. If you remember, anybody who watches my vids or sees my posts on Sideshow, there's a green shirt that I had used that looks very well for the Part 3 Jason that I made the other 3D using Beto's other head sculpt to make the axe and the head version. And it does, I also used it for my latest Part 6 Jason Lives, if you remember seeing that. Except this time, I weathered it and torn it to make it match this movie, and then I dyed it a darker blue color, because at the base, it is dark blue. So I wanted it to have that as the main color. So it works. The shirt works beautifully for Jason Customs, and it just shows you can use it for more than version. If you customize this shirt accordingly, you can make this shirt work for many different Jason movies, whether it's Part 3, 4, 6. You can even do 7. I mean, you can dye it close to this color and rip it up to show his rib cage and stuff, and maybe I'll do that at some point to upgrade my Part 7. The pants were already dark blue. I got them off eBay. I don't know what brand they are. But I basically bleached them a little bit to give it that faded away blue look, and then I weathered it and dirtied it up and just made it match the shirt. So it's all cohesive and looks like it all goes together. And then of course I added the holes and where the right rips are supposed to be to make it screen accurate. I learned from the sculpting that I did on the body this time as well. Last time I used Super Sculpey, and although it does dry fairly easy with some heat, if it's not dried perfectly correctly, in time it could start to crack and get brittle, which started to happen a little bit with my Jason 8, but with my original Jason 8. But it does, to be fair, my original figure did hold up through the test of time, and like I said, it is owned by somebody else at this point and is displayed in their house, so I'm glad it at least was made well enough to last. But this time I wanted to really make sure that it became part of the figure permanently. This is epoxy. So I used basically some sand mixed in with some weathering powder and paint and all that, and I basically sculpted it on there and made a gooey mess basically. And with the epoxy, it created that raised 3D effect onto the skin to look rotted and all that there's stuff going on there. And it dries on its own, and once it dries, it's permanent. It's like almost feels like concrete. So the articulation is all there, and it works. Nothing is taken away from the body using epoxy, which is great. The other thing is, you see, I made sure to do the rotting undershirt that you see peeking through the sleeves in the movie at some point. And I did that with my old Jason. And the nice thing about doing this here is conveniently where I placed it and where it's supposed to go, it covers up the joints of the doll, the figure of the body. So it adds more realism because you don't see any joints peeking out underneath the shirt there. So that works out beautifully for 2 points: screen accuracy and to make the figure a little more realistic. Same thing here, sculpted within the knees and the legs just to make it all stand out. And the one detail I made sure not to leave out was the pinky. Now, he's wearing black gloves. I think they're BBI or Dragon or one of those things, or Soldier Story. And the gloves come with bendy hands, which works out good with this. And I've seen other people do this, which I did. And I added that weathering, like that dirt, and a little bit of that greenish color again to indicate the seaweed or toxic waste or all the kinds of things that are, that's going on there, from being in the ocean, the water, the toxic waste, the sewer, whatever, and also rotting under the lake for an extended period of time. But if you could see there, we all know Friday the 13th has problems with their continuity and editing. They don't always have an eye for detail. So my eye for detail is showing their lack of eye for detail, which was exposing that little pinky finger, but keeping it flesh color. And you could see it throughout the film once you're aware of it. And others have pointed it out to me, and I learned from that from doing the first Jason 8. And it should look something, in the grayish, brownish color, or greenish color, like the arms and the rest of the body. But they didn't bother doing that, and you see his pinky sticking out flesh colored. So, it's pretty funny. And so I wanted to add that little detail in there. But basically, the last thing I made sure to do is I made sure to weather the clothing and to use, get that gook on there. It looks like dirt and mud and whatever else is mixed in there. And also did a little bit of gloss varnish on the clothes. But I didn't want to go all yucky. I didn't want to go overdo it. I've seen some Jason 8s that look great, where the person, who did it made it really look goopy and wet and all sticky and all that. And it does work. I mean, it looks great, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go more natural. I wanted the clothes to keep that soft clothing feel without getting too stiff or disgusting. I didn't want it to feel weird to even just pick the figure up or hold him, or to, if you want to move his arms, you could pose him, okay, and no big deal. So I wanted to keep the articulation. I wanted to keep the natural feel of the clothes a little more, but at the same time, I wanted to give that hint of wetness. And when the light hits the figure a certain way, you can't maybe make it out too much in the camera. You could see if I get maybe really close. You could see it in some of the picture, but if you look really close, depending on how the light hits it, you can see wetness. I'm going to use my phone camera here for a second, and the light on that. Let me see if I can see. There you go. So you can kind of see it. It stands out more in person, but you could see the glistening. And I also did that to the face. In addition to repainting it a little bit, I also added a little bit of gloss varnish just to give it that sweaty or, slimy, wet look to the paint job. Paint job was beautiful on its own. Like I said, I just wanted to enhance it a little bit and make it, once more, match the rest of the figure. And there you go. And it's beautiful. I'm proud of it. I think it's the best Jason 8 I've ever done. And, I'm very happy. It filled the void that I've, and it's given me an accomplishment that, I needed to have for a while after so long between doing the other Jason 8 that I originally did and a couple others that I've sold. And I really just wanted to try to perfect it and do the best Jason 8 that I could possibly do with my own two hands. And with the help of Beto's wonderful head sculpt, I think I've accomplished that. So anyway, without going on and on, that's it. That's my Jason 8, okay? Hope you guys like it, and I'll be back soon with more stuff, okay? Till next time, guys, peace out.